Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something I think we all struggle with, and that's time. How do we get the most out of it? How do we make it work for us instead of against us? We're going to get into all that today,
Absolutely. It's a really valuable resource. We only have so much of it.
right? And this deep dive is inspired by a fantastic YouTube channel called Awaken Your Potential. We're going to look at some really cool concepts from their videos, like saying hell yeah more often and using artificial deadlines to be more productive.
I love that channel. They have such a great perspective on time management as a key to personal growth.
Yeah, it's not about just being busy. It's about making sure your time is actually aligned with what's important to you.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices and owning your time.
And that starts with understanding just how precious time really is, right? I mean, every minute that passes, we can't get it back.
Exactly. That's something Awaken Your Potential really emphasizes. Time is finite. It's irreplaceable. So how do we make the most of it?
Well, they have some really practical advice. And one of the first things they suggest is something that might sound a little tedious, but trust me, it's eye-opening.
Tracking your time.
Yes, exactly. Track your time. I know it can seem like a chore, but when you actually see where your hours are going, you start to notice patterns. You see where you're wasting time and where you're using it effectively.
It's so true. You might be surprised by how much time you spend on things that don't actually matter to you.
Like when you suddenly realize you just spent 3 hours scrolling through social media,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, wait, what?
Great. It can be a real wake-up call.
But the good news is, once you have that awareness, you can start making different choices. You can be more intentional with your time.
And that's where Awaken Your Potential suggests we take it to the next level. Instead of just tracking our time, we need to actively shape it.
So how do we do that?
Hmm.
How do we go from tracking to actually shaping our time?
By asking ourselves some key questions. Are we spending our time on things that align with our values? Are we getting bogged down by things that aren't really important? And that leads to this awesome concept that they talk about called hell yeah commitments.
Okay, I've heard of that, but I'm always curious to hear different perspectives on it. So tell me, what does hell yeah even mean in this context?
It comes from Derek Sivers. He's this really successful entrepreneur. And basically he says that if you're not feeling a resounding hell yeah about something, don't commit to it.
So it's about being really picky with what you say yes to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We only have so much time and energy. Why waste it on things that don't truly excite us?
I love that.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. It's like giving yourself permission to say no to the things that aren't a good fit for you.
Right. And then you can focus on the things that really matter.
What about to-do lists? How does Awaken Your Potential view those?
They actually challenge the traditional idea of a super long to-do list. Those lists where you just keep adding things and it never seems to end?
Oh, yeah. I know those lists all too well.
Well, instead of that, they recommend focusing on one key task each day. Just one.
Okay, so instead of having this giant to-do list, you pick one thing that's the most important.
Exactly. It's called your daily highlight.
So you're giving all your attention to this one task and really making sure it gets done.
And they argue that this approach can actually be more effective than trying to juggle a million things at once.
So it's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. Now I know what you're thinking. What if I do have a ton of things to do? How do I even begin to prioritize?
Right, that's a great question. And this is where their suggestion for using physical to-do lists comes in.
Physical to-do lists.
Yeah, you heard that right? Pen and
Mm.
paper, ditch the digital to-do list app.
There's something really powerful about physically crossing off a task on a list.
I can see that. It's like a little mini celebration.
Exactly. It gives you a tangible sense of progress, and it helps you to declutter your mind.
So it's more about the feeling of accomplishment than just seeing a digital check mark.
Exactly. And Awaken Your Potential really emphasizes that.
I love that. Okay, so now we have our daily highlight and our physical to-do list. But how do we actually structure our day to make sure we're making the most of our time?
That's where time blocking comes in.
Time blocking. Okay, I've heard this term thrown around a lot, so break it down for me. What exactly is it?
Time blocking is all about intentionally scheduling every part of your day in advance.
Every part. So not just work stuff, but like everything.
Everything. Work tasks, meetings, breaks, even leisure activities.
Well, even scheduling things like breaks and fun time.
Yeah, it might sound a bit rigid at first, but the idea is to be proactive, to have a plan for your day. So you're not just constantly reacting or getting sidetracked.
So it's about creating a structure that helps you stay on track.
Exactly. And awaken your potential even suggests that you should treat these time blocks like appointments, like you would a doctor's visit or a meeting.
So if it's on the schedule, you're less likely to skip it or let it get pushed aside.
Exactly. They actually use Elon Musk as an example.
Hmm?
Did you know that he breaks his day down into 5-minute chunks?
5 minutes. Wow, that's pretty intense.
It might be extreme, but it just goes to show how dedicated he is to being intentional with his time.
And I guess it works for him.
Yeah, he gets a lot done. It's not for everyone, but it illustrates the power of planning your time strategically.
Okay, so maybe 5-minute chunks are a bit much for me.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see the value in breaking down my day and being more deliberate with how I spend each block of time. So we've talked about tracking our time using the hell yeah filter and the magic of time blocking. It feels like we're building a toolkit for actually taking control of our time. But what about those times when you have a project or a task that just seems to drag on forever? Those things that feel like they're never going to end.
Yeah, we've all been there.
So how do we avoid getting bogged down? How do we break free from that tendency to let tasks stretch out indefinitely?
That's where Parkinson's law comes into play.
Parkinson's law.
Okay, tell me more.
Basically, this law states that work expands to fill the time that we allow for it. So if I give myself a week to do something, it will probably take the whole week. But if I give myself 2 days, I might be surprised by how much I can get done.
Exactly. So how can we use this to our advantage?
Right, that's the key question. Does Awaken Your Potential have any suggestions for how we can use this to be more productive?
They do. They recommend setting artificial deadlines, even for tasks that don't have a real external deadline.
So I'm basically tricking my brain into thinking I have less time than I actually do.
Exactly. By creating that sense of urgency, you're much more likely to avoid procrastination and get things done.
That's so clever. I love it. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about focus, especially when it comes to those bigger, more complex tasks. How do we stay focused in a world that's full of distractions? It feels like deep work is a key part of that. So what does Awaken Your Potential have to say about finding that focus?
Deep work is essential. It's where we do our best thinking, our most creative problem solving. It's where the real magic happens.
Right, and Awaken Your Potential really emphasizes that.
They encourage us to schedule blocks of uninterrupted time for deep work. And I'm talking about really disconnecting.
So that means like putting your phone on silent, closing all those tempting browser tabs, basically creating a do not disturb zone for a while.
Exactly. The goal is to eliminate all distractions and just be fully present with the task at hand.
It's like creating a mini retreat in the middle of your day.
I love that analogy because that's really what it's all about. It's about giving yourself the space and the permission to think deeply, to solve problems creatively, and to make significant progress towards your goals.
It sounds amazing.
Right.
But I have to admit, the idea of disconnecting for a significant chunk of time can be a little scary. What if I miss something important? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with that fear.
It's understandable, for sure. But Awaken Your Potential encourages us to shift our perspective. Instead of viewing deep work as this luxury, this escape from the real world, they frame it as an essential investment in ourselves and our goals.
So it's not selfish. It's actually an act of self-care.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that when we invest in deep work, we're actually investing in our own growth and development, which ultimately benefits everyone around us.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get practical here. Does Awaken Your Potential offer any specific tips for making deep work happen? Because it's one thing to schedule the time, but it's another thing to actually stay focused and resist those distractions.
They do. They suggest finding a quiet, dedicated space where you can work without being interrupted.
Okay, so create your own little deep work sanctuary.
Exactly. And if you're someone who thrives on routine, they also suggest creating a pre-deep work ritual.
Ooh, a ritual. I like that. What kind of things are we talking about here?
It could be as simple as making a cup of tea, dimming the lights, putting on noise-canceling headphones, or even doing a quick meditation. Anything that helps you transition into that focused mindset.
I love that. So it's like signaling to your brain that it's time to get down to business.
Yeah.
So we've talked about tracking time, setting hell yeah commitments, the magic of time blocking, and now the importance of deep work. It feels like we're really building a framework for living more intentionally. But there's one element we haven't really touched on yet, and that's rest. Does Awaken Your Potential address the importance of downtime?
Absolutely. They actually emphasize that rest is not a luxury. It's essential for both productivity and well-being.
I completely agree with that. I know that I'm not my most productive or creative self when I'm feeling burnt out.
We're not machines. We need time to recharge, to replenish our energy.
And Awaken Your Potential reminds us of that.
They encourage us to schedule breaks throughout the day, just like we would schedule any other important appointment. And they remind us to be fully present during those breaks, to engage in activities that truly nourish us.
So whether that's taking a walk in nature, listening to music, spending time with loved ones, or simply just doing nothing, it's about giving ourselves permission to disconnect from work and just be.
Exactly. It's a powerful message, especially in today's always-on culture.
So true. But does Awaken Your Potential have any specific suggestions for how to make the most of our downtime? Are there certain activities they recommend?
They have a wide range of suggestions, things like mindfulness practices, spending time in nature, engaging in creative pursuits, connecting with loved ones. But ultimately, it's about finding what works for you, what helps you tap into that sense of peace and rejuvenation.
So it's about giving ourselves permission to play and explore. And that's so important, not just for our productivity, but for our overall well-being. So in this first part of our deep dive, inspired by the wisdom of Awaken Your Potential, we've explored so many valuable strategies: time tracking setting, hell yeah commitments, time blocking deep work, and the essential role of rest and rejuvenation. Now I'm curious, what are you feeling inspired to implement in your own life? What's resonating most with you right now?
What stands out to you? What are you curious to explore further? And remember, Awaken Your Potential has tons of great resources on their YouTube channel. Definitely worth checking out if you're looking for more in-depth insights and practical guidance on this journey of personal growth and self-discovery.
So it's a fantastic complement to everything we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And before we jump into the next part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about. If you could magically gain an extra hour every day, what would you spend it on?
That's such a great question. It really makes you think about your priorities and what truly matters to you.
So take some time to really reflect on that. And we'll be back in just a moment to continue our exploration of how to make every minute count.
You know, it's amazing how these small shifts in how we think about time can make such a big difference in our lives.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And Awaken Your Potential does such a great job of highlighting that connection between time management and personal growth. It's not just about being productive for the sake of being productive. It's about creating a life that really aligns with who you are and what you want to achieve.
Exactly. And speaking of that, they talk a lot about carving out dedicated time for deep work. Those activities that require our full focus and concentration.
Yeah, deep work is so important. But how do we actually make that happen when our days already feel so packed?
It starts with recognizing the value of deep work. Awaken. Your potential reminds us that those focused periods are where we do our best thinking, our most creative problem solving, and is where we make the most progress towards our goals.
So it's not just about getting things done, it's about doing our best work.
Right. It's about creating those do not disturb zones where we can really tap into our flow state.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, the idea of completely disconnecting for a chunk of time can feel a bit scary. You know, what if I miss something important? I think a lot of people struggle with that fear.
It's a common concern for sure. But Awaken Your Potential encourages us to shift our perspective. Instead of seeing deep work as this luxury, this escape from the real world, they frame it as an investment in ourselves and our goals.
So it's not selfish, it's actually a form of self-care.
Exactly. We're giving ourselves permission to prioritize our own growth and development, which ultimately benefits everyone around us.
I love that perspective. But okay, let's get practical. Does Awaken Your Potential have any specific tips for actually making deep work happen? Because it's one thing to block off the time, but it's another thing to actually stay focused and resist all those distractions.
Absolutely. They recommend finding a dedicated space where you can work without interruption.
Okay, so create your own little deep work sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're someone who thrives on routine, they also recommend establishing a pre-deep work ritual.
A ritual. I
Uh,
like that. Tell me more.
It could be something as simple as making a cup of tea, dimming the lights, putting on noise-canceling headphones, or even just doing a quick meditation, anything that helps you transition into that focused mindset.
So it's like signaling to your brain that it's time to shift gears and really focus. Okay, so we've talked about tracking time, the hell yeah filter time blocking, and now deep work. It feels like we're really building a solid foundation for living a more intentional life. But there's one piece we haven't really touched on yet, and that's rest. Does Awaken Your Potential talk about the importance of downtime?
Absolutely. They actually emphasize that rest is not a luxury. It's essential for both productivity and well-being.
So true. I know I'm definitely not my most creative or productive self when I'm feeling burnt out and exhausted.
We're not machines. We need time to recharge, to replenish our
The
energy.
Awaken Your Potential reminds us of that.
They encourage us to schedule breaks throughout the day, just like we would schedule any other important appointment, and to be fully present during those breaks, to engage in activities that truly nourish us.
So whether that's taking a walk in nature, listening to music, spending time with loved ones, or even just doing nothing, it's about giving ourselves permission to disconnect from work and just be.
Exactly. And that can be such a powerful thing, especially in today's always-on culture.
Does Awaken Your Potential suggest any specific activities that people can do to really maximize their downtime?
They have a whole range of suggestions. Things like mindfulness practices, spending time in nature, engaging in creative pursuits, connecting with loved ones. But ultimately, it's about finding what works for you, what helps you tap into that sense of peace and rejuvenation.
It's like giving ourselves permission to play and explore.
Exactly. And that's so important, not just for our productivity, but for our overall well-being.
So in the second part of our deep dive, inspired by Awaken Your Potential, we've explored the power of deep work and the importance of rest. Now I'm curious, what's resonating with you the most? What are you feeling inspired to implement in your own life?
What stands out to you? What are you curious to explore further? And remember, Awaken Your Potential has so many great resources on their YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking it out for even deeper insights and practical guidance.
Yeah, it's a fantastic complement to everything we've been talking about. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we want to leave you with a question to reflect on. What's one small step you can take today to start reclaiming your time and aligning it with what truly matters to you?
It doesn't have to be a huge change. Even a small adjustment can make a big difference over time.
We'll be back in just a moment for the final part of our exploration, where we'll dive into some even more powerful strategies from Awaken Your Potential. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive on making every minute count, inspired, of course, by the amazing Awaken Your Potential YouTube channel. You know, one of the things that I really appreciate about their approach is how they kind of blend practical time management tips with this deeper understanding of self-discovery. It's not just about like checking things off a list, but it's about creating a life that, actually feels meaningful and reflects who you are.
Exactly. It's not about becoming some kind of productivity robot. It's about using these tools and strategies to actually free up more time and energy for the things that really light us up. The things that align with our values and help us move towards our goals.
Yeah. And one of the simplest but most powerful messages from Awaken Your Potential is just this idea that time is a gift.
It's true. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and forget that. We only get so much time. So how are we spending it?
Yeah, when we start to view time as this precious and limited resource, it really does change our whole perspective.
It makes you more mindful, more aware of how you're actually spending your days.
And that awareness can then lead to more intentional choices, right? Instead of just reacting to everything that comes our way, we can be more proactive about how we're spending our time.
Awaken Your Potential really encourages us to ask ourselves these key questions like, what am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? And are these choices actually in line with my values and my goals?
It's a powerful question to ask yourself regularly, I think. It helps us to stay true to ourselves and not get swept away by other people's priorities or the constant distractions of the world.
Right. It's about taking ownership of our time and really using it to create the life that we want.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what are you feeling inspired to do? What's resonating with you the most out of everything that we've discussed?
Think about some action steps. What are some things you can start doing differently? And remember, Awaken Your Potential has so much great content on their YouTube channel. If you want to dive deeper into these concepts and learn even more strategies, I highly recommend checking them out.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to learn more about time management, personal growth, self-discovery. I mean, they have it all. And as you go about your day, remember that time is a gift. Use it wisely. Use it boldly. And most importantly, use it to become the best version of yourself.
Keep striving, keep shining, and keep awakening your potential.
Until next time.